Shirley Helen Davis.
Yeah. Yeah.
My middle name's Helen.
Yeah. My maiden name was Rathert, which was very German, Rathert. Yeah, and no.
Yeah, you didn't know you were German.
Huh?
I didn't know you had German.
Oh my gosh, my father's family was German through and through. Nothing both sides of the family. There were Osterhouses, believe it. Don't ask me to spell that, but
yeah.
Osterhouses and Ratherts. And my mother's family was, one side of the family was Scottish, the other side was Irish, and her name was Henry. Her maiden name was Henry. And the Scottish side was Gilchrist. And there's a town between here and Syracuse somewhere, and I can't think of the name of it right now, where her grandmother, I think, had come from as a child. And I actually went through there one time, and we went down in and wandered around and found a place. And it's just this side of Syracuse on Route 31.
Didn't you live near
An air base.
That's what I thought. That's
For
why I thought she might be
B-29s.
interesting because.
You know the name B-29?
I do.
Okay. They were built,
Sit
because
yourself
I
down.
lived in Kansas, and they were built, I was in Salina, and they were built 100 and some miles south in Wichita. And so that air base was built specifically for B-29s because the runways had to be thicker because the plane was heavier, and it took more, more runway and everything. So one of the big experiences of my life was they're a gorgeous airplane, and if I heard it going over today, honest to God, I'd know it was out there, because it's got a certain engine noise. Airplanes all do. And so she lived parallel to the long runway. So she said to me that day, why don't we go down and go to the end of the runway and around the end and over to the hill on the other side, and we can watch them, because they were practicing takeoff and landings, and they just come down and go down this way and go back up again. So we got in the car and we started down the road, and they were going this way and we were going this way. And I don't know why, but I said to her, wait, stop the car a minute. And I got out, and just as I got out, this one plane came down the runway, getting ready to take off again, and they were I don't think they were 50 feet off the ground. And the wing went down and the whole plane went up in smoke right before my eyes. And the thing, of course, burned all afternoon. And that's where I met my husband, was at that Air Force base. He was from around here, but that's where I had met him at a USO dance.
Yeah,
And
she even was involved with the USO, huh?
Huh?
The USO dances, you went to those?
Oh yes,
yeah.
I went to those.
Yeah.
We had a great big Masonic temple in that town, and they used to have dances down at the bottom of there. And I would never go out to the base. And so one time I decided to go, and that's the night I met him.
Oh, that's the night, huh?
That was the night, yeah. And there were all you didn't even get to sit down between dances because there were, we were way outnumbered by
men.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden it dawned on me that this guy came along, and most of them were short, and I was tall, and so they'd be shorter than I was. And so, but all of a sudden I looked up, and I wasn't paying much attention to them because you wouldn't go more than 5 or 6 steps and somebody else had cut in. So this guy cut in, and I kept looking and looking and looking, and here was my husband up here, 6'3" above me. And I thought, well, this is a break. And we no more than got to that point, then somebody cut in on him. And the first thing I know, then somebody cut in on him. And then the next person right behind him was my husband again. And this kept going on until the men got the message.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, they got the message. This one is taken. So that's the way that night went. So.
See, she had all the men. I had none of the men. My little hometown was devoid of men.
Yes. Well, even my hometown was by Fort Riley, Kansas.
Yeah, I thought you.
Which is the biggest, one of the oldest Army bases in the country. And but it was military. It wasn't Air Force. It was military. And when I was growing up in my hometown, if you wanted to ruin your reputation, you went with a soldier.
Yeah.
Okay? You didn't go with them. And the minute that war broke out, whoop, like a button was switched. And it was okay. It was then okay.
Then it was okay.
Yeah, because every mother's son was, you know,
Yeah.
even my own mother. Yeah, that's right. So
You didn't have any brothers, did you, Helen?
I had one brother. He was in the Navy.
Was he in the Navy?
Yeah, and he was sent. Well, once he joined, and he hated to go anywhere overnight. He wasn't. You send me somewhere to travel or to go, and I was gone. I still am that way. But they didn't do that. He was sent he came and enlisted. He enlisted when he was about 17. They sent him to Chicago, there's still a training thing there, their big main one for the Navy. And he trained there, and instead of sending him home for a leave, they kept him there for a little while, I don't know why. And then they sent him overseas. And he was over in the Mediterranean on a ship. And he was there for quite a long time and went through he went through the invasion of Africa and Italy, 2 or 3 places along Italy and southern France.
Africa, indeed.
Yeah, and he was not too happy because he was, wasn't getting home. When he finally did come home, then they never sent him out again. So, but he was. That was. And so at one point I thought, well, maybe I'll join the Waves, because that was women's.
Did you know any women that were in the service?
I knew a woman who joined the WWII.
Do you?
The last thing in the world I would have done was join the WWII. Don't ask me why.
Why? I don't know, but that was the reputation. Isn't that funny?
Yes.
The WWII had a little bit different reputation for some reason.
And they had a terrible reputation.
It wasn't quite as.
It wasn't. Yeah, you just didn't do that. But I had a very good friend who was in the WWII. She kept after me, and finally I thought, well, maybe I'll join the Waves. So by this time, my brother's in Italy, okay? He's younger than I am. So I wrote him and said something to him, and I got a letter.
No way, boy.
No sister of mine is going to be in the military.
That's right.
No, I thought, okay, we won't do that. That was funny. That was really funny. But
Different
anyway,
today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So. Well, as I said, I got so used to those engine noises that one time, when we lived in Chicago for a little while, we lived within 5 miles of the end of the main runway at O'Hare. I could stand in my kitchen window at night and see them coming in. I'd see them lined up about 5 or 6 down the road,
Yeah.
you know, with the landing lights. And but I could always tell you when the Swiss Air was coming in, because for some reason the motor on their plane was just enough different that I could tell it was them. And so that was, I enjoyed that being there. I enjoyed that.
Now, you must have had blackouts in Chicago.
Well, this wasn't Chicago. I would have been in Kansas when the blackouts were gone. And we didn't have, we had them, but honest to gosh, we were so far inland that we never had any actual, I think they did it for a couple of times and finally they just quit.
There's nobody came into the,
Yeah, because it was too far inland.
Now, what was civil defense? Remember, I had 3 of those metal cans, big metal cans that came from civil defense. And I can't for the life of me remember what that was.
I don't know, be
I don't
truthful with you.
I can't remember.
I can't.
There's something on the home front.
Well, yes, it would have been.
But
I know we had, at one point I think it was Salina, yeah, because I lived there when that was going on. Because I graduated from high school in 1940, and the war really started about 41. And so by this time I was in Salina and in a business school. And we had men that were out walking to be sure that lights were out, but that was soon abandoned because there was just
no need for it.
No, thank God there was no reason for it. No reason for it at all. So they just didn't do it anymore. So no.
And I don't remember. They were talking about saving aluminum foil.
Yes, I remember that.
Do you? No, I don't. Why would they save aluminum foil for?
Well, for the metal that was in it.
Oh.
Yeah, because there really is metal in it.
Oh. Huh.
Yeah, I remember that. You're right. Butter was rationed.
Sure was, if you got any.
Huh?
If you ever got any.
Well, you had a racing coupon.
You had oleo.
Oh God, I hated that stuff.
I knew you would. Wasn't that awful? Tastes just like Crisco, only it was yellow.
Horrible stuff. You could get, and of course I was living away from home, so this wasn't an issue with me. So if I had a racing coupon for something like that, shoes was another thing, by the way.
Yes, shoes were rationed.
And if I had a racing coupon, I ended up giving it to my mother. She was thrilled to death to get extra sugar, extra, you know, but I didn't need it because I didn't have an apartment. I was, you know, and so, and we, as I said, we had the men that walked around, but they quit that finally because there just wasn't any reason for it.
I don't remember that did we have ration book for the family, or did every member of the family have
it? It depended. Now, in my case, I was living away from home, so I had an individual one. And my father-in-law, who turned out to be my father-in-law after I'd met my husband, boy, the thing he wanted to do most, because I didn't know them, they lived back here, and I'm out there, and their son goes out there and picks up some Kansas girl and marries her.
Drags her home.
Oh, I wish I had saved the letters that my father-in-law wrote me, because they had a grocery store near Buffalo, and he'd be up early in the morning opening a grocery store, and he'd write me these fantastic letters. He offered me the world if I would just come back so that they could see me and meet me. And he sent me ration coupons for meat
Wow.
and butter
Ooh.
and all kinds of stuff that he got in the
And
store.
the black market, how did the black market happen? Remember?
Well, there was a black market then, I think, yeah.
There's a black market with the ration.
You didn't want to get involved in that.
I know, you didn't, but I God.
Yeah.
People always find a way, don't they?
They
take
did.
something good and screw
They
it up.
did. They did.
Yeah.
Well, he
You
finally,
probably got enough now, haven't you?
he finally decided that he was, I finally said to my mother one time, and the war was over by then, or no, it wasn't quite, but the one in Europe was. I said to my mother, you know, come Thanksgiving, I think maybe I better hop on a train and go to New York and meet this family. And so about that time, the whole thing stopped.
Yeah, and the boys
And
came
I
home.
thought, well, I guess I won't do that, you know, because Harry was on his way home.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, I'll wait. But he was, oh my gosh, he sent meat coupons out there when my husband was, just before we were married, but he was in a service out there, and he'd send them, the coupons were for, I don't know, pounds and pounds of meat, more than you ever got in a family.
Huh.
And so my husband went one time and we bought steak with him, and we had a steak fry with some of his buddies. Oh, there was a place out in Kansas where you could go up on this hill, Coronado Heights it was called. It was supposedly the spot.
Memories. You
You
got
ever-
her going.
You ever remember about Coronado coming to find?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, supposedly he quit. He got up on this knob in Kansas and took a look around and thought, enough already. So you could go in on a little dirt road and you wind your way around this hill. I've got a picture, the only picture I have of my husband and I together, because we've been divorced for a while, he's still alive, by the way, is upstairs, and it was on the top of Coronado Heights.
Mhm.
And we had gone up there for that picnic, and they had little places where you could cook up there and stuff, you know. It's out in the middle of nowhere up there. And I drove up there one time when I was out there visiting my cousin. I said, we kept going by the end of this road, and I said, let's go up there. She said, we were in her car. You ruined my car driving up that thing. Jesus, you're going to have to replace it. And I said, oh, come on, Gene. Don't be silly. So we went up and looked around. It was the same old place, you know. Not very
Same old,
exciting.
same old.
Huh?
Same old, same old.
Same old, same old. Yeah, it was, yeah. But yeah, it was kind of different kind of times, I'll tell you.
Oh, it sure was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there weren't any boys to date. I never had a date in 5 years.
Huh?
They were all overseas.
Oh,
the
sure.
boys. It was just, the women just kind of
Yeah.
saw each other through it. That and the old men that were home.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, that was. Yeah, we had a lot of.
I just wonder what kind of a war this is going to turn into.
Oh God, yes.
This is worse.
The thing.
But you know what I don't remember? Maybe you do, but I don't remember that we imprisoned the Japanese people here.
What?
We imprisoned. We kept them under the Japanese.
Oh, they
people.
were
They
put
were
in a camp.
in camp.
Yeah.
I probably did, but I don't remember it. Why? And I also don't remember too much about the Holocaust.
The what?
Holocaust, the Jews.
Oh, I do. I remember that, and I don't know why, but I know why. My husband and I had one of his best friends in college was from Germany, and he and his family had literally escaped from Germany. his father had owned one of the biggest publishing companies in Europe, had millions of dollars and an absolutely gorgeous house in Berlin, and they had to just leave everything and go. Now, they eventually got a lot of that back, because just before this friend of mine died, he said to me, I have finally gotten some of those paintings and the stuff that the Germans took away from them back. But boy, it was, and his mother or his father wrote a book. I wish I had a copy of it, telling about their experiences. And his mother was one of the sweetest little German ladies, or Jewish ladies you'd ever want to know, German Jewish. And she was such a lady. And she, when they came here to live, she'd had servants, she'd had chauffeurs, she'd had everything you could imagine. And of course, all that went. And she worked for the rest of her life when they came here in order to support them. She worked as a cleaning woman in Strong Memorial Hospital. And she never complained for a minute, because he couldn't do anything. He was too old. And so
The lives of were upset.
She was the sweetest lady, just the nicest person. And when I read the book, she had gone, during those terrible times, she had gone, if any of them left Germany, they could never come back in. Oh, it's no wonder that Germans really, not only the camps, but just the way they treated them as a group. And she had gone to visit a relative or something in Italy. And when she came back in, or tried to come back in, they arrested her, and she actually spent time in prison. And I couldn't imagine this woman in prison. And she never, ever mentioned that. I never heard it from her. Never heard it from her. But she was the sweetest gal, and she was such a nice person. And the kids, the friends my husband had in college, they liked her so much. And they decided one time that we were going to go over, after I'd come back here, and paint her living room, or their living room for them, help Art do that. So that she didn't, we said to him on the way over, you got the paint? No, we have to stop and get it. Well, what color are you going to paint it? Well, probably tan. No, said the two guys, my husband and his friend. We're going to get some blue paint or something like that, something really nice. So they bought a can of blue paint. So when she came home from work that day, she looked at the living room and she says, "Blue." She goes.
She didn't care for it, huh?
Well, she did. She was fine later, but then we sat down to dinner. And she said two of what she thought were the grandest things in the world on the table, and one was a whole heart from an animal. Have you ever faced that on a table? Well, I don't recommend it as a shocker. And there that sat, which had to be carved. And then what was the other thing? Heart and something else. And oh my Lord, we thought, we can't, well, to our everlasting
Credit?
we all ate it with, and
Ooh.
tongue, laying there, the whole tongue, and the heart. And tongue is actually delicious if you can get by. Heart I can live without, but the tongue is actually delicious.
Is it?
It really is, but you got to get by the vision you got in your mind. You can't handle it any other way. But we all sat there and ate it, as I said, to our everlasting credit, because we would not, any one of us, have ever insulted a woman, because this was, to her, this was the living end, you know.
Memory.
Oh, yes.
Memory.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It's
For the
what you
days.
got left when you get up to be 91.
Yeah.
Oh, Helen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Tom Brokaw referred to us as the greatest generation. And I started an outreach program and then called it the greatest generation reaches out. Because I was watching television one day and I became aware of the number of requests that come over the television for help. And they only give us two ways to respond, either by computer, which most of us don't have, or your credit card,
Yeah.
which they tell you, don't do that. Oh my God, they're missing a huge group of people. When you think of the number of senior residents, I was just talking about the senior residents. And we started it here and it took off, and I got 7 other facilities involved in it, and it took off, and
Yeah.
kaboom.
That's right.
Still going strong. But it was true, you know.
What? At church right now, you know, they do some of that.
Oh yeah.
And they're collecting caps for the men that go to Meal and More. The Meal and More that's operated out of the Episcopal Christ Church.
Oh, Christ Church, yeah.
And the men that come to that, they want caps for Meal and More. They've asked us, in the past we've been asked to give lip balm
Yeah.
tubes and something else, I forgot what it was. Toothpaste, small toothpaste. Well, this year they wanted caps. They wanted 60 caps, because Devin was saying today that's kind of a large order, so
Yeah.
we're expected to bring them all.
Hmm.
And they had quite a pile of them, so she said, if you go to the Walmart or somewhere and buy a cap, well, I don't get out to buy things much, so I don't know whether I can, if I do, I'll see what I can find, but.
But what was interesting about the greatest we grew up giving.
Oh, yeah.
We grew
yeah.
up during the Depression.
We're part of that. We're considered, we'd be
And the
people
war.
from that
and
generation.
We grew up, it was
Yeah.
just part of our life, was giving and
Yeah,
helping.
that's right.
And they've been so generous, and we've given to the Vietnam vets, and
Yeah.
sent some stuff over to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And they're very generous, and that was interesting because I began to hear that the people doing the giving were getting as much out of it as the people receiving.
Yeah.
I feel a part of it. I don't feel so isolated.
Well, true.
Yeah, it is
True.
Kind of ignore us if
Yeah.
they get a chance. I won't give them a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of us left.
Oh, sure.
World
Yeah.
War II is still
There sure
quite a
are.
few. And now our children are seniors.
Well, my husband is, as I said, he's still alive, and,
Yeah.
and he's 90. I'm 93, right? Yes.
I can't.
He's
I
2 years
don't know,
older than I
Helen.
am. Well, it gets to the point where, yeah, you have to think about it. And he's 2 years older than I am.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I look at this is why I've been down to see the memorial in Washington.
Oh, they asked
the
me
Second
that,
World
and
War.
I haven't. They asked me if I
Oh,
had.
yes. It's an interesting place because it's a circle of separate monuments, one for each state.
Ah.
Somewhere there again, that thing is probably down to my daughter's, but I have pictures of myself there. And I said to them one time, they want to know if I wanted to do something in Washington. I said to my grandson, I want to go down to that memorial. And so we went down, and I had my picture taken by the New York State one and by the Kansas one. And they have, so they have a pillar for each one. And then I think the most impressive thing to me was the pool that you stand in front of that looks down toward, now let me see.
The mirror lake
Huh?
between the two, between
You
Abraham Lincoln?
Yes.
And,
yes.
what is the name of that? Mirror, not mirror.
Yeah,
What's the
Reflecting
name?
pool.
What? It is.
Reflecting pool.
Reflecting, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you can stand there and look down there and see that. And but up above it, it's got a plate with stars. And one of those stars stands, each one of those stars stands for 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, some awful number of people that died during the Second World War. Amazing. And that isn't just civilians, I'm talking about military people. Yeah, military people. When I realized what it was, the tears come to your eyes. You can't help it. You just can't help it. You know, because it's something that you don't, even though I lived through it, I never think of it in terms of that, that kind of numbers, you know. No, I don't think about that, but no, it was interesting. So I'm very much, I have given a lot of money to this, what do they call it when they take the men down to see it?
Honor flight.
Oh,
Yeah. I've given a lot of money to that because I think every one of those guys ought to be able to go down and see that.
see that, yeah. My son-in-law's gone down with them.
Yeah. It's very nice down there, yeah. And then you can look up, they've got actually gave money to help get it built, to be truthful with you. That's when it started. Because what was the senator from Kansas that was in office for so long?
Dole?
And he's the one that started, and I sent money to him, and then little by little I sent more, you know, and then I had a friend whose husband was a Japanese American. He was partly Japanese, partly American, and he fought with the military in the Battle of the Bulge in Europe during the war, and in Italy and various places like that. His name was Takasawa, and he fought with that senator from Hawaii. Well, I don't know what his name was, but anyway, he fought in his unit that went all through Europe and fought so well. And he had a group of those people that, and so when he died, I said to his wife, would you like me to make a contribution to that in his name? So that's what I did when he died, because she was thrilled to death. She said he would have liked that. So it's an interesting place to go, and I had his name put in there. And you can have names put in their file of anyone, even civilians, if they worked for the military or did anything that was connected to the war. Now my father's name is there because he was a plumber and he worked, now this is going to just throw you for a loop, but he helped build during the Second World War. He went back to work and he worked and built a naval air base in Hutchinson, Kansas.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, a naval air base. Yeah. So I sent his name in and my brother's name in. And with each one, we sent a contribution, you know, so I feel kind of partly responsible for that one. Yeah. But it's a beautiful place to go visit. If you ever get a chance, you should do it. And so I wanted to go, and I said to my grandson, I want to go and I want to be sure their names are there. Oh, you could go and check, and you could also put them in. And you didn't have to give them money to do it, but you could if you wanted to, of course. They still will take it. Interesting place. Very interesting place. So anytime they want to send somebody down there to see it, I really think they ought to go. So I put money into that more than once. And they get so excited about going down there, I don't blame them.
No,
Yeah. Kind of like going to the Iwo Jima one and going down the wall and finding somebody you know. And I went down there one time with a friend and I said, we got anybody we can look up? Because I don't know anybody. You know,
Iwo Jima?
no. No, that isn't the one.
The
What's the one that's just the
Vietnam.
wall?
Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
That's Vietnam. And I didn't
You
really...
don't, my son-in-law was in Vietnam.
Was he?
They don't talk about that.
No, they don't.
It was a shame.
Well,
shame
my
about that
brother,
was
brother didn't want to talk about the Second World War either when he came home. He wanted no part of that.
A
No.
lot of them used to like to reminisce about this. I remember that.
But my husband had a little different experience. I think since he really literally wasn't being bombed ever, he was on Saipan,
Yeah.
where they took the planes and flew them over Japan.